Good evening, everybody, and welcome to what I hope will be an interesting piece of media archaeology. I, for one, am delighted to be reunited with my old colleague and sparring partner and friend, television here. It's been 25 years ago since we met in Amsterdam at an event I organised called Artists Talking Back to the Media. So it's quite interesting to be again here talking back to the media. And I must say, it's great to see you after all these years. I think you're looking great. I think you've lost a bit of weight, haven't you?
Yes, I have. I've slimmed down over the years. Not so bulky as I used to be. But being on the Roadhouse, you know, the comeback trail.
I see. Well, when I first met you in 1985, your career as a media personality in your own right was beginning to take off in the art world, that is.
Yeah, that's right, in the art world, but also don't forget, I had ambitions that it would take off in the broader world of television. I felt very much as if it was my moment.
I see, okay. Well, basically, I suppose it might be useful to point out for the audience, perhaps a lot of people wouldn't have even been born then in 1985, who are here tonight, that you began to establish yourself in the mid-1980s as a personality in your own right, by appearing as a blank screen, as if you'd emptied yourself of all content, like a light bulb.
Yeah, but don't run away with it. Most TV was rubbish anyway. It wasn't as if I got rid of all the good stuff.
I see, okay. Well, can you talk a little bit about the ideas behind the creation of this persona, a television, or the television?
Okay, like in the 80s, I mean, along with a lot of other people, I think we began to see the end of video art, or what was known as video art. And this, I mean, for me, this was to do with the end of the resistance of video art to television. I mean, once one accepted that video art came out of the same frame as television, this meant that you could no longer go on and pretend that there was any difference.
I see. But the big factor that you're forgetting is that around this time, a lot of other media platforms came on stream, particularly projectors. Didn't that mean the end of the monitor as we know it?
Well, it's kind of like the data projector, you know, did contribute to the end of video art because as a kind of separate category, I mean, there was that moment when Nick Sirota welcomed video art in from the cold, and he was talking about Bill Viola, and it was as easy, it is as easy to hang a Bill Viola as it is to hang a Julian Schnabel. I mean, easier, there's going to be no bits of pottery fall on the floor.
Right. But the route into the museum, that wasn't the route that you chose, was it?
No, I thought the most interesting thing to do was to go into television, which is exactly what I did. I entered the television. I became what I am now.
So what do I call you?
Just call me the TV. If you want to be overly familiar, call me the telly, but the TV will do.
Okay. And what influenced this decision of yours? What was behind it?
Well, kind of like, despite what I said earlier about most TV being crap, I'd always watched a lot of television, and it had always been a reference point for me. I mean, in art, it's a kind of thing that's kind of ignored. In Britain, I think also, it's a kind of class thing. Think of the number of art college tutors who don't watch television, or who say they don't watch television.
But it was still a brave thing to do, to submerge your own practice as an individual video artist into the television, and in doing so, to become anonymous, to become unknown.
Yeah, I remember being influenced by, I saw a comic on the Bob Monkhouse show, and the comic was called The Unknown American Comic. I don't know whether anybody else here can remember that. And this guy came out, and it was a stand-up comic in a very conventional sense with a dinner jacket on, just like Bob Monkhouse himself, and he stood in front of a microphone, and the only difference was he had a paper bag over his head, one of those nice paper bags that you get on American sitcoms, and he did this whole stand-up routine to television with this bag over his head. And he also did a fantastic thing. He had a ventriloquist act, so he pulled his hand out of his pocket, and over his hand he had a small paper bag, and he did the ventriloquist act with this kind of puppet. So it was terrific, and I remember that influencing me, the anonymity of it. I liked it.
So who was he?
I don't know. He was the unknown American comic. I think I saw him once again, and then that was it. He just disappeared.
I see. Well, anyway, maybe this is a good time to look back, a bit of nostalgia now, and remind ourselves how you became who you are. You've been in Scotland before, of course, in fact in Glasgow. So let's have a look at a clip of an interview you did called Death in Glasgow, which you did at Transmission Galleries in 1985. Let's have a look.
Do you find that audiences change from place to place up and down the country?
Well, there's slight regional variations, but in the main, people tend to sit and look at me most of the night and behave in the usual way. Sometimes people get up and make a cup of coffee, but that doesn't upset me because I know they're going to come back and they just sit and I seem to have this hypnotic effect on people. It's possibly to do with my star quality.
Can you cope with the audience being aggressive at all?
Well, that doesn't really come into it. If they start fighting with themselves, it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I watch it slightly bemused sometimes, but they can't really be aggressive to me. They can't do me any harm. I mean, my aggression is far greater than theirs. I'm completely one way.
What about the indigenous audience here in Scotland? For instance, take the High Road or Dr. Finley's Casebook.
Yeah, so what?
Well, I mean, do you think you're reaching the television audience or the art audience?
I think I'm reaching the Dr. Finley's Casebook audience or take the High Road audience. Don't see where art comes into this whatsoever. We're talking about television, aren't we? I mean, you're talking to the television.
Yes, we want to. This is very like something I saw in Edinburgh at the RSA in the British Art Show last year by a guy called Kevin Atherton. Have you had much contact with this chap, and do you agree with his ideas?
Yeah, there's one or two other backroom boys or people within television are talking about him as being interesting. I personally find that his remarks outside of television, looking in on television, are rather kind of fatuous. I think that, okay, some of those things are alright, but in the end, he's not television, so I'm not interested.
Well, that's certainly very forthright of you, but perhaps you could tell me, where do your concerns lie?
Totally with myself.
And do you think this has much to offer an audience, a prospective audience that's going to watch your work?
Whether it has much to offer them or not, one has to come to terms with the way that they watch me. I mean, it's not my fault that the things that are pumped through me are good or bad. I mean, I'm just the channel, or the channels. I'm just the vehicle through which all this stuff is pumped out. And I think that whether you like the egocentric nature of television or not, I am nevertheless extremely powerful.
Well, funny to say that. Plenty to talk about. You're not taking any prisoners, are you?
Well, I was only saying it as it was.
No time for Scottish television, poor old Dr. Finley's Casebook, no time for Kevin Atherton, no time for art, no time for anything but your bloody self, basically.
Yeah, but I told you. That's what I'm saying. I'm selfish. Don't be fooled. I swallow everything up. TV consumes everything. I just said I'm extremely powerful.
But I find your aggression in this context a bit difficult to take. But you do seem to have mellowed a bit with passing of the years.
Well, a lot's happened, possibly.
But what you seem to be saying is nothing is your fault, that everything is the problem of the content providers. But surely art, originally when it got hold of television, held up some kind of hope, some sort of redemption from the usual stuff.
You're joking. I mean, art programs are the worst of all. Artists, once we got into the 90s, they were knocking one another out of the way to get on television. So don't look to artists to do anything radical with television. They just want to be on it.